from giving cattle cute identification tags of their own, hoping it'd protect them from severe diseases. Here's why cattle farmers have given electronic ear tags the green light. Let's recap the USDA's proposal from January 2023. A disease called bovine spongiform encephalopathy began spreading like wildfire among cattle back in 2003. Severe diseases like this can harm the agricultural industry as a whole. And so, of course, the USDA has been trying to find a way to prevent infections and transmissions in livestock. Cue electronic tags. It hasn't been an easy journey at all. For the last 2 decades, these tags have caused quite a controversy. Some farmers have been a tad bit too enthusiastic, and then some were a little too apprehensive. What makes them exciting and what makes them terrifying? I'll get to that in a minute. Right now, the focus is on how, despite years of ongoing debate, the USDA has finally made these tags a requirement for all cattle farmers. The proposal put forward by the USDA's Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service contained very clear instructions. There were a total of 4 necessary requirements. The first one was that the tags will be an absolute obligation for any and every bovine creature that's sexually active. Not just that, they should ideally be at least 18 months old when they're tagged. The next requirement was only for female dairy cows. No matter how old these cows were, they had to bear these identification tags.
इधर भी blood vessels ना हो, मतलब जो ये vascular area हो इधर, जो मतलब ये इसका जो पिन्ना है ईयर का, तो इसके बैक साइड पे भी
What about the bulls? They got rules for them too. If a bull is born after March 11, 2013, then they get tagged too. Also, any cattle that are used for recreational events such as rodeos, shows, and exhibitions should also have the tag. So, all of them basically. If cattlemen are looking to move their cattle between states, they'll have to comply with these new regulations. And this is where the National Cattlemen's Beef Association steps in. The NCBA just responded to these requirements. The biggest concern for the folks at NCBA right now is how to protect their cattle from severe diseases. Todd Wilkinson, president of the NCBA, was particularly concerned about outbreaks from foreign countries. If something like foot and mouth disease attacks cattle, then it'll be a huge catastrophe for farmers in the US. A number of painful blisters pop up on various parts of the infected animal's body. What's more, since it's easily transmitted from one animal to another, it has become a serious concern for the whole livestock industry. This is where electronic ear tags step in to save the day. The entire point of these tags is traceability. Now, what exactly does that entail? Well, with these ear tags on, it would be easier to detect outbreaks, and public health authorities can act quickly to try to curb the aftermath. The biggest downside of such outbreaks is that farmers end up with diseased stock, and as you know, diseased beef doesn't exactly sell well either. Farmers have to make sure consumers are getting the best meat out there. The NCBA highlighted how concerns like these make electronic tags a necessity. Many cattle farmers are eager to comply with the USDA's regulations. But, yup, there's always a but. There are definitely a few concerns as well. The biggest concern right now is privacy. Of course, with new technology on the market, there's been an overall apprehension about data infringement and whatnot. And that's a pretty valid concern if you ask me. This is why NCBA believes that there should be certain regulations in place that promise to protect the private data of producers. That is, protecting it from all sorts of disclosures. For this, the NCBA itself has come up with a solution, and they're hopeful that USDA will listen. They've suggested that instead of using federal, state, and tribal databases, it would be better to involve a private or independent data collaborator to ensure that the entire system remains confidential and that cattle farmers can comply with the USDA's regulations. Other than this, the NCBA officials seem to be pretty eager about the implementation of these tags. In fact, they're already in agreement with the USDA's planned timeline. So far, the USDA wants to make sure that all cattle farmers in the country tag their livestock by early 2024, and the NCBA agrees with their timeline. It's better to implement this as soon as possible, so a system is in place to prevent future outbreaks. But you know, the NCBA isn't the only organization to speak up regarding this. There's also the U.S. Cattlemen's Association. The USCA has some stuff to say about the USDA's USDA's proposal, but most of it is pretty much the same as the NCBA. The USCA also wants USDA to ensure that producers' private data isn't leaked, and if anyone wants access to that livestock data, the concerned cattle farmers should be contacted beforehand. But other than that, there were plenty of things that the USCA believes should be implemented, and the NCBA didn't mention any of these. One of them is that the tags used should be the 840 series ones. That means no 900 series tags, farmers. Why is that so? Well, simply because the 840 tags follow a unique identification code, something that's lacking in the 900 series tags. One thing the USCA and NCBA majorly differ over is the proposed timeline. According to the USCA, the cattle industry should be given more time to adjust to this new system. After all, this electronic business, it's not easy to get the hang of it, am I right? If you remember, I brought up problems related to how this technology might be too costly. Well, in that case, the USCA is hoping the USDA will provide financial assistance. Now, with all those nitty-gritty details out of the way, it's time to dive into how these electronic identification tags work. Basically, the animal will be tagged at its ears with a unique identification number. They also contain an electronic chip, hence the name electronic identification tags. The number should be easily visible, and the code should be electronically readable, so that the information can be easily tracked and stored in a database. With all of that in mind, there are plenty of advantages and disadvantages to these tags. Let me dive into the good parts first. The best thing about these electronic tags is that they're pretty reliable. Unlike other visual tags, they have great retention properties, which means once they're on your animal's ear, it's going to stay there. Also, with advanced technology, these tags make identification more efficient. Gone are the days when farmers had to single out an animal from the herd, make sure that it stays completely still, and then try to read its visual tag and match it. With e-tags, you just need to scan the code through an electronic reader and voila! Suddenly, life's a little easier. Of course, there are also very few chances of any errors in keeping count of the cattle. With visual tags, it's very easy to misread them and then write the wrong tag number. What's more, the tag numbers can be easily transferred to a computer. Then, farmers can create their own database and keep a check on their livestock. Now it's time for the cons. The biggest disadvantage at the moment is the cost, of course. You can't expect new, innovative technology like this to not have a couple of downsides. And the sad reality is that these tags aren't going to be cost effective. Unlike traditional visual tags or tattoos to mark animals, using electronic tags means investing in a bunch of relevant equipment that would be needed to read the tags as well as manage the data. Then, don't forget the potential for malfunctioning. Sometimes the tags might not be readable and lead to errors in record keeping. One tiny concern is also about the welfare of the animals themselves. The tags tend to be quite heavy, and it might hurt the animals if they have to bear the weight of these tags all day long. And finally, the issue already raised by the NCBA is privacy and security. An electronically readable database means that certain agencies could gain unauthorized access to the data of cattle farmers. And who knows exactly how they might misuse it. That's a wrap for how cattlemen are all in for the use of electronic identification tags.